Buddy Jimmy Smith for my picks and pre-fight breakdown of UFC 246. Outside of the main event, not much of a card. I was really surprised when this got announced that there wasn't at least a strong co-main event, something to maybe satisfy the hardcore fans who may be a little disinterested or less interested in Conor McGregor than casual fans, to kind of draw them in, and maybe another name that casual fans would recognize. I thought we'd kind of see that in the co-main, and we're really not. The biggest names on the when it comes to the main card are Anthony Pettis and Holm, both of them coming off losses, and that's about it in terms of name value that somebody who's not into the sport would recognize. So I found that a little strange. We might have some great fights, but they are really relying on Conor McGregor and to a lesser extent Cowboy Cerrone to draw in fans for this card, and that's it. That those two names will sell pay-per-views. Conor by himself might sell enough pay-per-views, and that's it. So you kind of get the feeling that this was kind of thrown together last minute. Who's available right now to make this date work? And this is what was come up with. Anthony Pettis versus Carlos Diego Ferreira. Anthony Pettis, of course, coming off loss to Nate Diaz. This is a guy, if you remember, when he was champ at 155 pounds, literally on a Wheaties box. A lot of people thought he was going to be the next crossover superstar. He would do big things and be that next fighter to cross over outside of MMA to get a real big fan base, and it just didn't happen. Went on the skid, lost to RDA, lost to Eddie Alvarez, Edson Barbosa, and it's been win one, lose one ever since then. So it's been one step forward, one step back. They've been to great names. They've been to some of the best in the division. And that's great, but there's still losses. Loss is a loss, and he's had a lot of those. Max Holloway, Dustin Poirier, Tony Ferguson, Nate Diaz. Nothing wrong with those names, but it's been an inability to really get a streak at the elite level, which is what he's on at 155 pounds. That's the way it goes. So the win over Stephen Thompson, a huge upset. Knockout there, great stuff, but once again, another step back and a loss to Nate Diaz. So this fight screams to me, get back on track. It's a decent fighter, good fighter in Ferreira, but not one that's elite, not one that's super tricky. He's a come forward and throw kind of guy. He's a pressure fighter. Now, to me, it's about the style versus the name. Meaning, Ferreira's the kind of guy who brings a style that has given Pettis trouble in the past. That come forward pressure kind of style has been tough for him. But the guys who have brought it and been successful are the elite of the elite. Yeah, Eddie Alvarez has a come forward pressure kind of style. He ended up winning a title. Rafael dos Anjos, come forward pressure kind of style, also won a title. Nate Diaz. But so it's a matter of Ferreira having the right style, but I don't know if he's good enough at it to really cause Pettis problems. If you look at Ferreira's last fight, against Taisumov. Taisumov had some success in the opening round with some counterpunches, rocked him, staggered him, and then eventually rounds 2 and 3, what happened was he was able to wear Taisumov out. Ferreira put pressure on him, he started to wilt and get tired and fade, and he was able to take over. That's great. Pettis is a bit too accurate for that kind of style. I think he's a bit too versatile. He has too many weapons, and also we haven't seen Pettis have a step-down performance against a non-elite fighter. Meaning, every time Pettis has taken on somebody who wasn't really a great fighter, meaning, the one over Jim Miller, a veteran, but never the elite of the elite. Michael Chiesa, great fighter, but not championship contender right now. One over Charles Oliveira was big, but I don't think Oliveira was on the streak he's on now. Anytime he's faced a name that wasn't one of the best, he's done well. He hasn't had that looking down at his opponent, not able to perform. The worst loss, probably Clay Guida, but Clay Guida at the time was very, very tough. So I think Pettis has enough to beat a Ferreira who's going to come forward, throw punches, but is vulnerable to the counter shot, and I think Pettis is probably going to land it. Now, moving up the card, Claudia Gadelha versus Alexa Grasso. Claudia Gadelha is strong, man. Really strong for this weight class. You saw the win over Ronda Marcos. Has a great ground game. Couldn't get that going at all. Couldn't get the takedown going. Certainly couldn't get the submission game going. I liked her versatility. I liked her aggression, but it was more her physical ability in that fight. She is strong at 115 pounds, for sure. Of course, her opponent in Alexa Grasso, she's strong too. But since she's joined the UFC, it's been win one, lose one, same thing. She's yet to really find her legs underneath her. Lost to Felice Herrig, lost to Tatiana Suarez, Carlos Esparza. No shame in those names, of course, but hasn't been able to really find her legs yet. A win over Ronda Marcos as well. But I believe that right now, Claudia Gadelha is more confident. And with her build and her aggression and her strength, I think she goes forward and is the aggressor and probably wins by decision. So that's my pick there. Anthony Pettis, by the way, if you want a more specific pick, I think he wins by knockout. I don't see him winning by decision, although it's possible, but I think Pettis just finds the right spot against an aggressive fighter and wins by knockout. I think Claudia Gadelha probably wins by decision. Alexei Olynyk versus Maurice Greene. Alexei Olynyk is one of the strangest heavyweights ever. He always goes for this Ezekiel choke, this no-gi Ezekiel choke he always goes for, and he gets so many fighters with it. But what that lets him do is do things like pull half guard and sweep from funky positions. And he doesn't need the standard double leg mount positional kind of jiu-jitsu that a lot of heavyweights use. He'll try to submit you from anywhere, from his back, from wherever he can get it, because he has so much faith in this Ezekiel choke. So Maurice Greene, a tough heavyweight, 8-3 as a pro, but coming off a knockout loss to Sergey Pavlovich. The issue to me is I don't think Maurice Greene has seen enough of these positions. He's just not experienced enough to avoid the ground game for as long as he's going to have to avoid it. You can avoid a double leg, you can avoid a single leg, you can avoid all that stuff in training. A big heavyweight pulling guard and rolling for something funky takes a lot of experience to deal with. Now, Alistair Overeem in Olynyk's, the last time he took on a real veteran guy, had the experience to stay away. Also a great grappler in his own right, was able to stay away. I don't see Maurice Greene having that ability. You can stop the standard double leg, the standard takedowns. I think he has trouble with the unorthodox style of Alexei Olynyk. That's what catches fighters by surprise. He'll jump for weird stuff and then go for that weird Ezekiel choke and get you. And the standard stuff you would do in training don't really get you ready for that. You have to be really on your toes on the ground for Alexei Olynyk. And I don't think, with his experience level, Maurice Greene is there. Holly Holm versus Raquel Pennington. I have been verbal about this before. I said it once, I'll say it again. To me, Holly Holm is the Buster Douglas of MMA. She had one great performance against Ronda Rousey. She has not beaten an elite fighter since then, despite lots of opportunities. I think that win just put her on a level that she wasn't prepared to stay in. Of course, there were losses by decision, of course. Valentina Shevchenko, Jermaine Durandamy, even Chris Cyborg. She went the distance with all of them, but didn't have what it took to win those fights. Of course, her last time out against Amanda Nunes, she just got wrecked. I think Amanda Nunes did a great job and is probably the greatest female fighter of her generation. But the fact that she's had opportunities against Shevchenko, Miesha Tate, Jermaine Durandamy, Chris Cyborg, Amanda Nunes, and hasn't won any of them. She can always beat the Raquel Penningtons of the world. She's already beat her once. This is a rematch of a fight that wasn't controversial, wasn't particularly exciting, and we're getting a rematch of it. And what this kind of screams to me is just getting Holly Holm back on track, but her only wins since beating Ronda Rousey are Megan Anderson and Besh Correia. I don't think either one of those fighters were elite, or are elite. So Holly Holm will probably win just because Raquel Pennington, not an elite fighter in her own right. I know she got a title shot. I called it in Brazil against Amanda Nunes, and she just didn't have anything for Amanda Nunes. No shame in that. I mean, I don't think anyone in this weight class has anything for Amanda Nunes at the moment. But once again, she had a fight against Jermaine Durandamy. She had a fight against Amanda Nunes. She came up short. And so I don't see things going that differently this time around. I think Holly Holm probably outstrikes her, is a bit more accurate, a bit more athletic, and wins by decision. Because Holly Holm, put her against the elite, she doesn't win. Put her against other names, she does. So I think probably she gets another decision over Pennington. What that does for her, I don't know. That's the weird part. I just don't see, usually in a fight like this, especially a co-main event to a Conor McGregor fight, you want to see some stakes. Okay, this winner might be next in line for a title shot, and we've seen Holly Holm in that position too many times. I don't think she gets another title shot. Raquel Pennington, if she beats Holly Holm, will she get another title shot? Probably not. Amanda Nunes beat her up pretty good the first time. So I just don't see a lot of stakes in this fight. Holly Holm probably wins. I don't see what it does for her. She's shown over and over that she can't get over that hump when it comes to elite fighters. Now the main event. But I still think Holly Holmes wins this one by decision. The main event, Cowboy Cerrone versus Conor McGregor. I have gone back and forth a million times on this fight. I try not to make emotional picks, right? I try to just break down and go with kind of my head more than my gut. And one of the reasons is every time I've picked Cowboy Cerrone to win a big fight, pay-per-view, maybe title eliminator, a lot of stakes, he's let me down. I've been burned by Cowboy too many times. Last time was against Tony Ferguson. I really thought he'd get over the hump. Ferguson had a long time off. Cowboy was looking good. And once again, he just kind of started slowly, wasn't able to get going. And, Ferguson able to stop the fight with that swollen eye at the end of round 2. So every time Cowboy's been in these positions, he's underperformed. So here's the way I look at this fight. And I talked about this a bit when this fight was first announced. So I'm kind of reanalyzing all this stuff to kind of get it straight in my own head. Conor McGregor is the kind of fighter that Cowboys always had trouble with. This fight, big pay-per-view, a lot of eyes on it. I don't know about title implications yet, but certainly a big step forward for both fighters should they win, and a big step back from the fighters if they lose. This is the kind of environment Cowboy hasn't done well in the past. And what I mean by Conor's the kind of guy who's giving him trouble, he has trouble with accurate, tricky, versatile strikers who start quickly. All of that's Conor McGregor. The guys who stand in front of Cowboy and bang and want to throw and all this, BMF stuff, he does well against those guys. Even guys that are bigger than him and stronger than him, he can generally fight that kind of a fight pretty well. The kind of fight where both guys warm up and get bloody and then really start throwing and kind of build, he loves that kind of stuff. But when it comes to an accurate, tricky, slick, maybe a bit unorthodox fighter, it all goes out the window for Cowboy. And that's the kind of fighter Conor McGregor is. An X factor that I talked about before when this fight was announced that has been less of a factor is I thought there'd be a lot of press and media and Conor getting in Cowboy's face and pissing him off and making it well known that we're not friends. We're not buddies. Cowboy likes fighting his buddies. He likes being friends with the guys he fights. And, of course, there are a couple of notable exceptions. But for the most part, he likes being buddies with the guys he fights. Conor McGregor doesn't like being buddies and would antagonize him and go after him at the press conference enough that might throw Cowboy off his game. We haven't seen a lot of that. It's been pretty dead. The press conference, as I'm recording this, is tomorrow. So there might be a little bit of that, but I thought we'd see a lot of lead-up. I thought we'd see a lot more press and a lot more face-offs and a lot more opportunities for Conor McGregor to kind of get under Cowboy's skin. We haven't seen him. He might get under his skin tomorrow, but that's right before the fight. I don't know if that's really going to make any difference. So that's one X factor that really hasn't been a factor so far. But tactically and, how can I put it, environmentally, meaning big fight, stakes, all that stuff, things favor Conor McGregor for sure. Is this fight being at 170, does that change very much? I think Cowboy's naturally a little bit bigger. At 170, he seemed a little filled out. Conor looks like a puffed up 55er. He's a natural 55er who can get to 70. I don't think he sits that well there. Cowboy isn't a natural 170 either, but I think he's a little bit bigger. He fits a little better at 170. So that slightly favors Cowboy. But I think Cowboy does his best work at 55 as well. The thing that kind of answers the question to me is a prime Cowboy versus a prime Conor, who wins? Probably Conor. How far away are they from that? I don't know. That's the question. Is with all the out of octagon distractions, is Conor 100% focused? With the streak he's been on and in this kind of fight, is Cowboy going to be at his best? I don't know. But Conor in the interviews, from everything I've seen, obviously you never know from training footage. They don't show you them looking bad. Conor looks pretty sharp. And I think a sharp Cowboy versus a sharp Conor, I think Conor wins. I can't say I wouldn't love to see Cowboy win this fight. I really would. But it's just one of those things where tactically I think Conor brings everything that Cowboy generally has a problem with. The one issue that has bit Conor in the past and might catch up to him in this fight, he has trouble with his pacing. Now, gas and pacing are two different things. It's not that he necessarily runs out of gas, it's that he explodes. His style is very explosive, then he needs to recharge. And then he explodes, and he needs to recharge. A lot of great fighters fought like that. You can make a whole career fighting like that. But if Cowboy can keep the physical pressure on past round 2, we'll have a different fight. Cowboy needs those times to get a breather and relax. The Nate Diaz fight, the rematch. For the people, Conor won the fight. A lot of people thought Nate won it. Either way, Conor would unload, land good punches, and then need a break. And then would start getting on his bike and moving around because he just can't keep that up the whole time. If Cowboy is able to get out of round 2 and then make it about, okay, now we'll see if I can put the pressure on and make you fight for 3 rounds when you're starting to get tired and wear you down, we're going to have a different fight. If there's a line in this fight where everything might change at the end of round 2, because I think if Conor wins, Conor's going to win early. Not that he has, once again, a gas problem. He doesn't necessarily like, I'm out of gas. Going out of gas does this, right? He kind of does this, where he explodes, boom, 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 but he can't keep that pace up the whole fight. So he takes breaks. That might catch up to him if Cowboy starts putting pressure on at the end of round 2. That's where I think this fight might switch. If you're a Cowboy fan and he's conscious and doing well, walking back to round 2, walking back to his corner at the end of round 2, good job. You're going to feel great about things. So that's my predictions. Those are my predictions. To go over it again, Anthony Pettis, Carlos Diego Ferreira. I think Anthony wins by knockout. Claudio Gadelha over Alexa Grasso. I would go with Claudio Gadelha by decision. Alexei Olynyk, I think he submits Maurice Greene. I think Holm wins by decision over Raquel Pennington. And I think Conor McGregor, I would say knockout in the first 2 rounds over Donald Cerrone. If he doesn't, then we might get Cowboy late. But got to stick with one prediction. It's Conor early because that kind of fight has always given Cowboy problems. All right, thanks a lot. I'll break it down afterward. Also, I'm on SiriusXM all week for Fight Nation. I'm also doing the post-fight for Fight Nation at 1 in the morning. So after the pay-per-view, if you want to call in and talk, go ahead and do it. Talk to you soon. Bye.